and welcome back to the CKM Red Rugby League channel. Thank you for joining us once more on another beautiful Tuesday as we will go over the team list. Literally just dropped on NRL.com. We're going to be going through them, picking them apart, giving you our best tips as well. As ever, joining me, Luke Jobson. How are you doing, pal?
Mate, not too bad. You and I had a pretty good week on the punt. Both of us going at about 66%, including our best bet of the week. The Bunnies 1-12 with the Rav4, paying $7. So, what do you think? I think we're going pretty well.
Yeah, I can't complain with that. It's probably our best week so far. Hopefully, we can pick some more good ones this week. But before we do get started, it's worthwhile mentioning that 76% of you watching this video right now are not yet subscribed to this channel. If you are enjoying the content, leave a like, drop a sub as well. It helps us more than you'd ever imagine. And with that, we will get straight into our first game. It is the Dragons versus the Roosters. It's a tough ask for a Dragons side who are desperately still in search of a finals berth ahead of the end of the 2020 season. They've come into a little bit of form. They've not been looking too bad of late. A bit of a disappointing loss last week. But they come up against a Roosters side who were run close last week and still missing a few key players as well. I mean, the Dragons have had to have a little bit of a change-up. Clune back in. Hunt goes into 6. Norman is the player dropped out of the squad as McInnes goes to his preferred position of 9.
Yeah, a bit of an interesting one. It's not the most ideal scenario, I think, having whatever Norman's on, something like 800,000, not even in the 17. But yeah, Clune has looked a lot better playing half than that of Hunt or Norman. So it makes sense for him to come back in. Jackson Ford, I think, has a judiciary trip or needs a fitness test. I'm not 100% sure to confirm his spot this weekend. But look, in all honesty, the Dragons didn't look dreadful last weekend. Of course, another spine change, but yeah, they've looked relatively good, even with results not going their way. That being said, the Roosters are playing like absolute dog crap and are still eking out wins. So, granted, it was the Warriors 2 weeks ago and the Titans last week, and a much improved Titans outfit at that. But you'd have to think, surely, Matthew, surely the Roosters play a little bit better, considering they're up against opposition that kind of still maybe have a chance for a final berth.
Yeah, I mean, so you go over some of the history. The Roosters have won 4 out of the last 5 coming up against the Dragons. There's been a few close ones in there. I mean, a few low scoring ones as well. But the Roosters, you'd think realistically, even when they are a little off the boil, and much like the Dragons, gone through a bit of a spinal change, that they'd still be up there and still realistically in with a hope of beating the Dragons. Because, I mean, you look to the Dragons bench, Sailor, Kerr, Merrin, Fuimaono, you've got a lot of size in there. Sailor is a questionable one for me because if the Dragons do end up running this one close, then when do you implement Tristan Sailor? When is the point where you go to your bench and you think now's a good time to bring him on because it's not going to realistically affect the flow of the game? I mean, it's a tough one for me. I mean, you look to the Roosters, Lamb into the 7, no Flanagan this week. Hutchison comes to the bench as well as a little bit of a backup for Jake Friend because he has in previous weeks pulled up lame on a couple of occasions, but I'd still see this one going the way of the Roosters, but I think it's going to be closer than people expect. I think a lot of people are expecting after 2 disappointing weeks that the Roosters come out firing and put a good amount of points on, but I see this one going Roosters 1-12.
Yeah, you've kind of stolen my thunder there because I've gone Roosters 1-12 as well. The weakness that we saw last week was the side of Ryan Hall, which is the left side of the Roosters' defence. Now, granted, he did have Tupanua playing in the centres instead of Josh Morris, I think it is, on that side. For those who are wondering, apparently I can't tell left defence from right defence because whenever I put my tips on, I get it wrong. But I know that Zach Lomax plays right side for the Dragons. I know Ryan Hall plays left side, and that was their one defensive weakness. So in terms of tips, I have gone Roosters 1-12. If they show up lame again this week, realistically, the Dragons could pull off an upset. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. But the Dragons very well could pull off an upset. The line currently is 11.5. If you're brave and want to take the line at $1.90 for the Dragons, you can. I'm going Roosters 1-12, but knowing that Lomax comes up against the potential of Hall, Morris, and if Morris doesn't play Tupanua, I'm going to say Zach Lomax anytime try scorer as well.
It's not a bad shout. So I lean towards Tedesco anytime. He's been kept quiet for a little while, and I'd expect that the Dragons, they've got a few missed tackles in them. Their forwards tend to tire around the middle a little bit, and that's really where Tedesco comes into his own, especially in sort of the last 20-25 minutes of a game. So I'm going to go Tedesco anytime with the Roosters 1-12 for my tip on that one.
If anyone is brave enough to take Lomax with Roosters 1-12, that pays $8.75 as of 5 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon. Going Tedesco, Roosters 1-12, that pays $6.25. So some cheeky value in there already, and it's only game one.
Okay, then. And with that, we will move on to the next one. If there was a tough game to call this round, the Seagulls versus the Warriors is definitely up there. The Seagulls are wildly unpredictable at best, and the Warriors, you might as well play the lotto instead, trying to tip a Warriors either way, because they are just so they're so wildly unpredictable in 2020. Every time you think, oh, that's it, they're going to hit a bad patch of form at this point, they do something wild like run the Roosters close, or just pull off a shock win against the Tigers last week. I mean, how do you back against the Warriors at this point? But against my better judgment, that is exactly what I'm doing this week, as I am going to go with the Seagulls. It's one of those things where I think if there's any games that you do leave off your multi this week, this is definitely one of them. Just because don't never put your Warriors for or against in a multi, because you don't know which Warriors side's going to show up. The Seagulls bring Cade Coast back into the 6. The Warriors also undergoing a slight spiral change as Blake Green leaves, and we will talk about him a little bit later and his new employers. And Chanel Harris-Tavita now looks like their long-term 7.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie, I wasn't expecting Blake Green to leave this week. So it was interesting to see that pop up on my newsfeed when I woke up this morning. Look, I'm going the Sea Eagles too. It's not impossible to back the Warriors, but I feel more confident in the Sea Eagles attack knowing that Cade Cust is there. It's really unfortunate for Dylan Walker with the injury trouble that he's had with his foot. It's starting to become a bit of a reoccurring issue here, and hopefully he's able to fix that up for a potential finals berth this year. And I do recognise that Tavina Funa is a little out of position playing centre instead of wing. That being said, the attack looks a lot better with Cade Cust in the 6 than it does with Dylan Walker. Tom Trbojevic potentially could be back in a week or two if the estimates are right. So there's that to look forward to. But that means that Brendan Elliott's going to have to try and give a performance that will cement his spot when Trbojevic comes back. because otherwise there's a chance that Funa stays in the centre and Elliott drops. Look, it's tough. I want to say the Warriors because I have Eli Katoa and Tohu Harris in my Supercoach side, and they've been performing lights out the last couple of weeks. But it's hard at Brookvale to go. I said this last week. We saw what the Panthers did. It's hard at Brookvale to go against a Manly side who always get up after getting thumped the week before, especially in front of their home fans on the hill. In terms of bets, I can't really recommend going either way. It could be a blowout. It may not be. I will say, though, that in the last 5 games that these two teams have played, they have gone over the line, which is currently at 36.5. So my suggested bet is over 36.5 for total match points. I'm going to go with some cheeky value here for anytime try scorer. He's due a try. He's going to want to prove Des Hasler wrong for dropping him last week. So I'm going for Cade Cust as an anytime try scorer at 375 for Manly as well. The Warriors tend to give a half pairing a good chance every week. And I think Daly will quite happily send Cade Cust through with a cheeky little grubber on that left side. So don't be surprised at that.
Why have you done this to me? So it appears that we have done the same line of research, and you've now. So in the last game, I stole your thunder, and in this one, you steal mine. Thank you very much, Mr. Luke Jobson. I looked into the last 5 meetings as well, and all of them have ran, well, all except one, which was their last meeting, which was 24-16. So they have all ran for 40 points or more. So I am going to take that line. I call your line and I raise you a 39.5 on the over. So I'm going to go with that. I think that there's more value in it. I think they're two teams that do tend to have a slight defensive lapse from time to time, and that does lead to tries. I am also going to say either team 1-12, just because there's been some history of close games. I mean, 24-16, the last one. Manly winning the one before that, 46-12. The Warriors, the one after, 34-14. But then you're back to some close games back around 2018 mark, 22-21, 26-22. So based on how the Sea Eagles are travelling right now and how close a lot of their games have been, I'm going to say either team 1-12. I do lean towards Manly, but I do know that the Warriors have that dogged ability to just turn up and ruin your tips for the week. So I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna go either team 1-12 with an over 39.5 for total match points.
All right. So if you multi-mine together over 36.5 Cust anytime, you're getting 575. Matthew, I can't multi yours because you've said either team 1-12, and Sportsbet does not offer that. But over 38.5 is 216. There's no over 39.5 offered, so that's what I'm giving you. Either team 1-12 is $1.91.
Okay then, and with that, then we will move on to the next one. It is the South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the Brisbane Broncos. Brisbane welcome back some key players, which could potentially make this game a little closer than first expected. But South's pretty much unchanged. They seem to be going through a decent spell without major injuries to first-team players. I mean, when you look to the Broncos, you've still got Darius Boyd at the fullback, Staggs back in centre with Farnworth, Coates on the wing with Kenner. Croft comes into 6 because there is no Anthony Milford. He is gone for 4 to 6 weeks. Realistically, that could take a little longer with the grade of hamstring strain that he has suffered, meaning that if the Broncos do not make the final, his 2020 season may be done. And the big inclusion there as well in the 11 shirt, the return of David Fafita Jr. How much he can lift the Broncos forward pack, I don't know. But it could be closer than first expected.
The immediate thing that stands out for me, and so I have all of my tips listed down, as I do every week, as well as the betting tips that we give. I have tipped bunnies. But the thing that stands out for me is that David Fifita has only played 2 games this year, round 1, round 2, prior to COVID. The Broncos won those 2 games. And it was because their forward pack absolutely dominated. Now, as much as I like Matthew Lodge as a player, I think that this is the strongest forward pack that the Broncos have in their stocks at the moment. Thomas Flegler is great. Turpin, yeah, you can argue whether Turpin's the future 9 for the Broncos now, but he has Isaac Luke on the bench who gives a good 15, 20-minute spark. We don't need to talk about Payne Haas. He's just a gun. David Fifita on his day, and it'll be interesting to see his match fitness, but on his day is one of the most dynamic game-changing forwards in the league. Tavita Pangai Jr., if he pulls his head in, again, a game breaker. Pat Carrigan can't put a foot wrong. He's like an Isaiah Yeo. Probably not as good of a ball player as Isaiah Yeo, not as versatile in the positions that you can put him, but he's just solid. He does his job and he does it bloody well. You then look at the bench. Ben Teo starting to get some match fitness back. Joe Hoffa-Hengawi, he's an origin forward sitting on the bench. He's a gun. Reece Kennedy starting to get a little vein of form. I've already spoken about Isaac Luke. I think this is, and it sounds a bit weird saying it, but this is the strongest Broncos team that we have seen since the COVID break. I'm curious to see how Brodie Croft goes teaming with Dom Dearden for a full 80. Darius Boyd probably played his best game of the season last week. Granted, that's not that hard to do, but he looked good. Richie Kenner looked fantastic on the wing. Coates, always a high threat. And coming up against, well, let's see, I'm probably going to get it wrong, but if he comes up against Jackson Paulo, he's going to have the height advantage by a long way. Katoni Staggs. Now, granted, this is pending the integrity unit doing a bit of a dog shot on him, but assuming that he's allowed to play this week with what's come out in the media, and if you haven't heard, he's part of a revenge porn scandal that he has no, I'm not saying he has no defense. I'm trying to find the right word here, but he should be fine. Long story short, he should be fine. It's someone taking revenge against him. But he's back after a great performance last week. He has an opportunity to really stamp his mark on the game. I'm still going the Bunnies, knowing full well that I've hyped the Broncos here. But it's going to take the best of Damien Cook. It's going to take the best of Cody Walker, and it's going to take the best of Latrell Mitchell. If those 3 can work around and have a really good combination with Adam Reynolds playing his usual solid self, I see the Bunnies doing this, but it's going to be close. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what to give you for a betting tip right now. So, Mr. Matthew Wright, I'll let you take the reins on this one, but I think it's tighter than what everyone's going to predict.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, one of those early wins actually came against South Sydney pre-COVID. That was a 22-18 win, so 40 points in that one. So there could potentially be some points in this one as well. But I am going to go with South's 1-12 here. Like you mentioned, I think this one is going to be close. Worth noting as well, Campbell Graham signed a new contract with South this morning. I can see him potentially celebrating that new contract with a cheeky 4-pointer. So I think I lean towards South's 1-12 and Campbell Graham getting over, just simply because if you're going by the numbers, he comes up against Farnworth and Coates, who are both out-and-out wingers. But although Farnworth has played a lot of centre this year, he is a winger. His best position is winger, and he is a little bit defensively suspect when it comes to working those edges because he's so used to defending out wide, he almost positions himself as if he's still a winger. So all he does is offer up his inside shoulder to a centre. And Campbell Graham's not a player you want to be offering anything to. He's a long-rangey player who has a decent fend on him and can go over from 10, 15 out very easily. So that would be where I'd go for that. I'd go Souths 1 to 12 with a Campbell Graham anytime try scorer.
So, look, this is tough. For the record, as of 5:06 on Tuesday afternoon, Sportsbet don't have the try scorer markets up, so I can't give you really accurate odds on that. If I had to hazard a guess, Campbell Graham anytime would be about 225. That I'm guessing that. Just keep that in mind when you are watching this. Bunnies 1 to 12 is 288 at the moment. I am going to go with a cheeky same game multi, paying $4.20. I'm going to say that it's going to be over 38.5 points. That pays $1.90 if you're doing these as singles. As far as I can tell, the last 5 games have at least scored 40 points or more between these two. South Sydney, lowest scoring game of the last 5 is 28. 3 of the 5 have gone over. As for the Broncos, in their last 5, the lowest scoring game is 34 when they won against the Dogs. It's just a score-a-thon when the Broncos play. It doesn't matter who they come up against. Good team fighting for the 8 or down the bottom. So I'm going over 38.5. I think the Broncos give Souths a run for their money here, and I'm going to say that the Broncos are going to take the line. So Broncos plus 10.5 at $1.83. If you put that together in a same-game multi on Sportsbet as of right now, it pays $4.20. I imagine that line may shift depending on team changes. If anything, I think the Broncos probably should come into about 350 on the head-to-head, which means the line will shift to about 8.5. So keep that in mind when you are doing that. But Broncos plus 10.5, it just feels like they're going to make this game a lot closer than one thinks.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that as well. I think that the Broncos have got a decent performance in them yet. So with that, then we will move to the next one. The Melbourne Storm take on the Canterbury Bulldogs, and it is a slightly rejigged Storm, to say the least. No Ryan Pappenhausen this week. Hines comes in at fullback. No Cameron Smith through injury, so Brandon Smith in to the 9, Jesse Bromwich into hooker, and Eisenhuth comes in to play centre. It is a huge rejig for Melbourne, with Jacks coming into the bench as well. The question is, how much will those changes affect the Storm? As we've seen, the Bulldogs are not a pushover anymore. They seem to be going okay, and there'll be a team spurred on by the fact that they, well, to put it lightly, they were robbed last week, based on what Graham Annesley had to say about the try that never was. The Bulldogs gone for a few changes as well. I can see my good friend, the Parramatta fan, having a little chuckle at that one. But the Bulldogs gone for a few changes as well. Ogden into the starting lineup. Remus Smith going to the bench. Marshall King to the bench. Katoa comes into the starting 9 spot. Worthwhile mentioning as well the fact that Aidan Tolman has been dropped to the bench as well after what many fans have criticised last week as a bit of a brain fade with taking the tap and go instead of shooting for the sticks, which would have realistically tied the game up. But it is what it is. Can't change things now. How do you expect this one to go?
Yeah, we're not going to talk about the Dogs potentially being robbed. As a Parramatta fan, I don't really care. We've had a whole decade of the referees not going our way. We're taking the decision and running. To be fair, though, what did I tell you last week, Matt? I said the Dogs always show up for a game against Parramatta. It's going to be closer than what everyone thinks. I didn't put anything in terms of like a 1-12 or either team. But they always do. They always do, the Dogs. They always show up against Parramatta. It was a nitty-gritty game. And I got the Moses try right. So, yippee. Yeah, I think the Dogs are going to give the Storm a run for their money here, to be completely honest. No, Pappenhausen, with a little bit of game management, is fair enough. There's no point risking him with the couple of injuries that are coming through, and it gives Nico Hines a good shot at fullback. It'll give him a little bit of game time that is much needed. I am slightly surprised that they're playing Tom Eisenhuth at centre over Sandor Earl, who's currently on the reserves in the 21. Starting the year, Sandor seemed to have sewed that position up, but obviously injuries kind of got in his way there. That being said, Eisenhuth did look quite good last week in a position he did play some junior footy in. I'm not sure where he pulled Jesse Bromwich from playing a hooker. Brandon Smith is playing hooker, sunshine. I know it's early in the morning over there, but come on, let's get rolling with it.
You need your ears cleaning, my guy. You need your ears cleaning. I said Brandon Smith at 9, Jesse Bromwich into the 8, Smith out of the 8 into 9. Smith into the 9, Jesse Bromwich into hooker. Don't ever come for me like that again.
When this comes out, I'm going to have a look, and if I'm wrong, then my apologies. But if I'm right, you can suck on it. Yeah, the Bulldogs. Oh, this is one for the blooper reel. The Bulldogs have looked better the last couple of weeks. They've been playing like an NRL team should be. The Storm should win. They just should, even with no Cameron Smith, the Wombat, the Cheese, whatever you want to call him. Brandon Smith is still a very good hooker in his own right. I'll let you go through your betting tips first as I try and see if Sportsbet have done us a good one and popped the anytime try scorer markets up. They haven't. So again, we're kind of guesstimating the odds here. But Matt, what have you got for us?
Right. So I think this one's going to be close. I mean, you look at the last 2 games between these two sides back in 2019, they both ran for under 40 points. There was a 28-6 Storm win and an 18-16 Storm win as well. So this one could be closer than people expect. So I am going to go with the under 38 or the under 38 and a half on this one if they do offer it. I don't know because I don't have access to Sportsbet because I'm in the UK and we're not allowed those really good bookies over here apparently. But I also do fancy the Storm to win both halves. I think it will be tight. But I do think that the Storm will eventually get up over the Dogs. The Storm tend to come into their own in a second half in particular, but do have a strong finish to first halves as well. So for that reason, I am leaning towards Storm both halves and under 38.5 points for that game.
Do you want the good news or the bad news?
Give me it straight, Doc.
I cannot find either market on Sportsbet at the moment. They're doing us a bit of a dog on that. So I can't. Oh, how they just put up both halves. Team to win both halves. Storm $1.72. Can't tell you the alternative under. I can tell you that the current points is set at 41.5, paying $1.90. If I had to guess, if they're offering, it's probably more likely to offer 37.5, 38, 39.5. If I had to guess, based on what we said for the Sea Eagles game, I would imagine it'd be close to around 215 for 30. We'll say 37.5. Actually, I'll give you 39.5. I'll give you those extra points. That'll probably be close to about 205. Yeah, you kind of stolen my line of thinking again, yeah, mongrel. But I am going to go with Jake Averillo. I'm just putting one. I'm only going the one tip here. I'm going Storm on the head-to-head at $1.12. Actually, no, I'll give you two. Storm 1 to 12, because I think the Dogs are going to... I agree that the Dogs are going to keep this a lot tighter than we think. Storm 1 to 12, playing 330. I'm going Jake Averillo, anytime try scorer. The dude is quick. If he can get outside of Eisenhuth close to the line, assuming that that's the side he plays, he's going to be great value considering the Dogs are at $6.50 on the head-to-head. I can't tell you what the odds will be at the moment. If I had to hazard a guess, they're probably going to be close to about $3.50, which means the multi will be jumping around $11 if you put them together. That's probably a bit of value if you are looking for it, because I don't really know where else you're going to find any. The other option that I'm not going to put down as a tip but may suggest is a Kenny Bromwich try.
And with that, then we will move on to the next one. It is the Newcastle Knights taking on the West Tigers, and it's both teams have gone through a major shake-up, and I honestly, if there's like a 1 or 2 games you'll leave off any of your bet slips this week, this one checks all the boxes of don't touch. Let's go through the lineups. Toa comes into the wing for the Knights. Shibasaki into the centre. Green comes into the 6 jersey. Mann goes to 9. Crossland to 14. It's absolute madness on one side. Then you go to the other. Joey Leilua back for the Tigers. Talau goes to the centre. Kipoa, I think his name is. I probably butchered that, and I sincerely apologise. Brooks into 6. Eisenhuth to 13. Mbai to 9. Packer back from suspension. Walters goes to the bench. I mean, it honestly feels like when you used to play like under sevens and people used to draw positions out of a hat. It feels like that's what both teams have done this week. It's absolutely wild. I would not touch this one with a long barge pole. I've realistically in my head I've got an idea of which way I want to go with things, but these lineups don't make it easy picking for either team.
No, they really don't. However, I'm going straight off the bat and saying the Knights. Now, I, in good conscience, cannot suggest tipping a head-to-head either way, because I don't think you can. That being said, both teams lose their hookers. Both teams have a new 6. Both teams have new centre pairings. But the one spot that I think that the Knights have over the Tigers is the fact that Kurt Mann will dart out a dummy half, and Kurt Mann is playing with confidence. Moses Mbye is not playing with confidence. While he still can dart out a dummy half, and there's no denying the fact that he is a Queensland origin player, he plays in the centres. That is his best position. Joey Leilua, I don't know if he's going to have a great game or if he's going to have a crap game. I really could not tell you. I don't know how Kapoa plays. Luke Brooks coming back in for Billy Walters stuns me. I don't think that's the right decision to make, in complete honesty. And for me, Harry Grant has been one of the best players in the competition. And the fact that he's not there this week makes me lean towards the Knights. That being said, while you can't touch this in terms of tipping anyone for your multis, you can absolutely find some value in terms of tipping for a same game multi. So here's what I'm going with, and I'll explain the logic. David Nofaluma coming up against Toa and Heimel Hunt, I think is just going to be too big and too strong at doubling your money at $2. Too good a value for me. Over 36.5. Yes, there are mass changes. Yes, the attacks will be shanky, but in the last five games that these teams have played, the lowest points total has been 41. At the line currently being 36.5, it's too good a value at $1.89. I'm also going Lachlan Fitzgibbon, anytime try scorer. The Tigers know that Blake Green is not a runner. He's a support player. And with him being in the 6, it means he's going to be running out the back. That means they're going to rush up on that second receiver. I think what's going to happen is that Mitchell Pearce is going to dart down the left side, I think, of the Tigers. They're going to try and rush up on Blake Green and Caleb Ponga. That means there's going to be a wide open lane for Fitzgibbon to dart straight through and score. About halfway across that left side. I reckon he'll do it in the 60th minute. If you manage to combine those all together, that pays $13. I do not recommend combining them together because I will not be. I will be playing these all as singles. But I think there's some great value in this game if you look and dive a little deeper.
Okay. Yeah. So yet again, we've gone the same line of thinking. So as you mentioned, the points there. So yet again, I will have to up the stakes, and I call your 36.5 and raise you to 38.5 on the over. There's points in this. Both these teams are literally, if they lose today, if they lose on the day, there's a realistic chance that their finals hopes are done. Because you got the Tigers who are lurking in and around just outside the 8. You got the Knights who are desperately hanging on for dear life. I mean, we go back 4 weeks. The Knights are sitting 3rd. Life's good. Everything's great. Then all of a sudden you lose 3 hookers. Your winger. You've lost your arguably one of the best rookies that the league's produced in some time in Bradman Best. And all of a sudden you're just chopping and changing your team left, right, and centre. So there's going to be points in this because you've got players out of position, a little bit of unfamiliarity as well in a few centre pairings. But I'm going to say you back that and you multi up with a Joey Leilua anytime try scorer. And the reason that I say that is because he has a lot of he's got a big point to prove, because basically he was a absolute turnip in getting himself suspended, and now he has to come back in. He's got to make sure that centre spot is his own, because he has got players like Talau who are breathing down his neck. He's got Mbai. If it wasn't for the fact that there was injuries, realistically Leilua maybe doesn't make it back into the squad. So I think Joey Leilua has to prove his point, and he has to do that by having a good defensive performance on his side, as well as bagging a try for himself. And if you're going by the numbers and the numbers alone, he comes up against Shibasaki and Hunt. So I think Joey Leilua anytime try scorer, and I also think over 38.5 points on that one. As for the team, I'm gonna. You know what? I'm going to back the Tigers for this one. I just think that they've got a little bit more familiarity amongst their players. Although that forward pack of the Knights is an absolute weapon, I am going to go for the Tigers in this one.
All right. If you multi the two that you suggest, over 38.5 with BJ Leilua scoring, multis to 650. BJ, probably some really good value there at 360 on the anytime try scorer, over 38.5 as a single to 15.
Okay, then. And we will leave that one there then, and we will get on to the next one. It is the Panthers versus the Raiders, and this one is very, very hard to call because these are two teams that love a tight win. They're two teams that most of their losses have been relatively tight as well, which if you go to the stats on, the Raiders have an average losing margin of 7.8, which is as good as 8 points. The Panthers' average losing margin just 6 points. The Panthers' average win margin 14 points. The Raiders' average win margin 9.2. So this one has tight game written all over it based on how these teams perform. Even defensively, they're very similar. The Panthers only conceding 170 points, the Raiders 177. So this one could be an incredibly tight, low-scoring affair, which is why I am going to back whatever they offer the under at, as long as it's semi-reasonable. I'm looking in and around sort of the 36.5 mark. That would be where I'd find my value for that one. The Panthers, not changed. Coruscant back named in 9, but he played there anyway. So Kenny drops out. Tetevano comes back to the bench, so adds a little bit of bulk coming off the bench as well. The Raiders, however, a slight change up. Nickel Clockstad comes back into the fullback role. That is their only change of notoriety this week. Curtis Scott keeps his spot as well after a good performance, and John Bateman is still there as well as Haruira Nara on the bench.
So I'll address your tip in a minute, but I don't think this is hard at all. I think the Panthers have it. The Raiders are probably back to their best lineup, but Penrith have been too good. They've been too strong. We said it was going to be a close game last week, and they blew the Manly Seagulls out of the water. They scored 4 tries in about 24 minutes. It was just dumb how quick it went and how quickly that game was over. The Raiders do get Nickel Clockstad back. You could tell that he was missed last week. But you just can't. You can't go past this Panthers side. Honestly, if they play like how they did last week again this week, they're going to run riot over the Raiders, who, again, have been fantastic defensively, and they have John Bateman back, who played superbly last week. But the Panthers are too good. They're too strong. I personally don't give the Raiders a bloody hope in hell. So I will, there's your quick analysis. I don't need to go any deeper than that. Straight into the bets. Let me ask you this first. The line they currently have is 34.5. Are you happy with it?
Oh God, no. So if they're offering 34.5, take the over on that. That's way too tight. That's what like an 18-16 win so would basically see that come in. There's going to be more points than that, definitely, but it is going to be tight. They're two very good defensive teams.
I agree. I question your logic because in the last 5 games, the smallest total points score has been 42. So I'm absolutely taking the over 34.5 there at $1.90. Within those games, the second half has been the top scoring half in 3 of the last 5. I'm not going to suggest going second half as the over. I do think that will be the case, but I'm not going to add that as my tip. Instead, I think that the Panthers are going to target John Bateman. He may have been superb last week, but I don't think he's quite up to 100% in terms of match fitness. I think they're going to send Viliami kick-out at him from close range. So I'm going to go with a kick-out anytime try scorer at 310. But I will diversify myself. I will look at the Raiders. They're coming up against a side that has Wateni Zalesniak on the wing. If the numbers line up how they are listed, that should see, and again, I'm going to get this wrong, so sue me. Whichever winger is lining up against Wateni Zalesniak is going to score. I'm going with Nick Kotrick at 250. I thoroughly enjoy how he plays, but if Rapana's lining up against him, it's going to be Rapana that scores. He's currently at 275. So just figure out who's going to be up against him, and that's going to be who scores.
Yeah, so that would be Rapana based on how the numbers line up. But for my tip on that one, I say back the over 34.5. It's going to be tight, but it's not going to be 35 points tight. So I say as well, Panthers 1-12. That would be how I'd go with that one. I wouldn't touch an anytime try scorer in this one, just because these are two teams that are very good defensively, it's got to be said. Some of the best in the league. They love to eke out a tight win, And the fact that these two only win by such slim margins and lose by such slim margins, I think going, if you want to play it safe, go either team 1-12. But for me, Panthers 1-12 with the over 34.5 if you're going to multi it up. And I see that one getting home in emphatic fashion.
Panthers 1-12, 288. Oddly enough, the Panthers 13 plus is the better, is the more hammered line. I guess big win, little win at the moment, paying 270. If you go with the multi on that, Panthers 1-12 with the over for a same game multi, it's over 35.5. Just keep that in mind. It pays 625.
Okay, then, and then we will move on to the next one. The Gold Coast Titans are becoming one of the hardest teams in the comp to tip for or against right now. They've proved that they are no pushover as they start to build towards their future. A team that runs the Roosters close are always going to be brimming with confidence. But saying that, they do take on a Cowboys team that welcome back a few big names. You look to the Cowboys lineup, you've still got Tabuai Fido in the 1, but Obachek comes back into centre, Hampton into 6, Michael Morgan comes in for 7, Granville into 14, Dunn and Hess are your second rowers, and then looking to the bench, Gilbert, Perry, Molo. The Cowboys are arguably at their strongest lineup since the beginning of 2020, realistically.
Yeah, realistically, they definitely are. This is a tough one to call. The Cowboys, arguably, if they had Val Holmes uninjured, that would be their best lineup. I do question dropping Clifford, who I think has been one of the Cowboys' best in recent weeks, and letting Ben Hampton keep the 6. The Titans were superb last week. They ruined my multi. They ruined the same game multi as well, mind you, because Joey Manu got held up and Philip Sammy didn't score until the 78th minute. So it screwed over my over on the points. That being said, I am going the Cowboys. I think as good as the forwards of the Titans have been so far, the Cowboys will just be better. They have Maguire, McLean, Hess, and Taumalolo, all 4 of those Origin and international representatives. Mitch Dunn, a versatile player, has played centre, has played 5'8", now back in his preferred second row spot. Reece Robson has been fantastic. The introduction of Granville, who a couple of seasons ago arguably should have been the Queensland hooker, gives them a little bit of versatility on the bench. And Frankie Molo, who recently signed a contract extension with the Cowboys, will be almost impossible, I think, to stop coming off the bench. I'm going the Cowboys head-to-head on my tip, paying $1.77. They've won the last 5 against the Titans. That's as far back as Sportsbet will let me see. If I feel a little bit frisky, I'm going to say Cowboys 1-12, paying $3.20 as well. 3 of the last 5 have been 12 points or less for the Cowboys against the Titans. One of the other 2 was a 14-point win in which the Cowboys scored in the final 2 minutes. Obviously, they played this year, spanked them by 30 up at Townsville, but I think it's going to be a lot closer. The Titans are better for the season, and as we saw last week, if they can give the Roosters a run, they're going to give it a red-hot crack. If you want to play it safe, either team 1-12 is $1.62.
See, I'm very tempted just to go take Cowboys, just take a Cowboys win, Cowboys on the head-to-head, and go with that, play it safe, because the Titans, realistically, you've got nothing to gain from trying to build value that's not really there, because the Titans last week showed that they have that upset in them if needs be. And you know what? If it wasn't the Roosters, if it wasn't one of the top 3 sides that they pulled that performance against, realistically, you'd see them coming back and taking a win there. So I think I'd be wary of touching that one. But I'm just going to say Cowboys on the head-to-head. I honestly don't know how this one's going to go for points. It's going to go one or two ways. It's going to be really close and low scoring, or really close and high scoring. So either team on the 1 to 12 is a good shout for me. But just for pure safety, take the Cowboys on the head-to-head. We are into the final game of round 13. The Sharks take on the Eels, and it seems that the Sharks' strategy for 2020 is we only need to score more points than we concede.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Defense hasn't been a huge focus for them, which do you know, it's not a bad strategy. It seems to be working, but coming up against an Eels side who averaged 22 points a game, coming up against a Sharks side who averaged conceding 22 points a game as things currently stand, trying to outscore the Eels is a huge ask, and I realistically don't see them doing it because the edges is where they've conceded most of their tries. The forward pack isn't an issue. But if your forward pack is where your money's made, the Eels are not the team you want to be going up against.
On today's episode of In-Depth Incredible Insight with Matthew Wright, the strategy is to score more points than you concede. I absolutely love it. This is why we're free, Matthew. This is why we can't monetize. This is why we don't have the Patreon. Oh
God!
Look, it's
man.
Man. These are two of the premier attacks in the NRL this year. It's been fantastic to watch both sides. I am not even going to bother. You know who I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick Parramatta. With that being said, it is going to be a lot closer than the betting odds suggest. In the last 5 games, there has not been a game that goes under 50 for Cronulla. In fact, you can make it the last 6 for Parramatta. Their last 3 games have been 34, 42, and 40. Obviously, they grinded out a 10-4 win in the wet against Newcastle, but going back further, you have to go back to before round 6 to have a game that doesn't go for 34 points or more. Of course, Sportsbet, in one of probably the more valued games, don't have all the markets up, so I can't give you betting odds. However, we know that Mike Acevo loves to come screaming in. We know the same for Blake Ferguson. So it is impossible for me to not suggest Sione Katoa anytime try scorer, one of the most prolific try scorers in the competition. And the fact that the Sharks are $3 favourites means he's probably going to be around $2.50. Too good a value for me not to suggest that. The line for Parramatta is 6.5. It's tempting. Again, I don't know if I can suggest that. But, it's not a bad shout. This is going to be a high-scoring game. I do think Parramatta is going to win, and I do think that they're going to throw a crud ton of points on. But I don't know if they're going to get the quick start that they did last week. So I'm going to say the Sharks are going to win the race to 10, which currently is paying $2.56, sorry. I think the Sharks are going to shell-shock Parramatta early on, and Katoa will be one of those try scorers within that run to 10. But then Parramatta will get the race to 20. And if you really want to be ballsy with that one, within that, I think it's going to be a Sean Lane try. So plenty to get through, but Parramatta to win. Sione Katoa, anytime try scorer. Sean Lane, anytime try scorer. Sharks race to 10. Parramatta race to 20.
Okay then. I think that Para are going to run up a decent scoreline here. So I'm going to go Eels 13 plus, just based on the fact that the Sharks are basically relying on their attack constantly. They're not defending well. They come up against arguably probably one of the best forward packs in the comp, albeit without Ryan Matterson. So, and there's a spinal change for the Sharks as well. Moylan into 6, Johnson into 7. I mean, last week I said this. I do really like the fact that they've put in Tracy at 7, though, because I think a lot of coaches would make that rash decision of pulling Johnson out of the 6 jersey, putting him in the 7 and have him as the dominant ball player, which, as we've seen in the last few weeks, Johnson is enjoying having that free run and that running ability. And now what do? They put Johnson into their 7, despite the fact he's been killing it at 6. So now Johnson becomes your predominant playmaker and Moylan's your running half. Will his hamstring hold up? I don't know. It's questionable. Will he pass a late fitness test to get him into that 6 jersey? Again, that one's questionable. But I just see the Eels running amok in this one. As I mentioned, Sharks on average conceding 22 points a game. The Eels scoring 22 points a game. It has Eels big win written all over it for me. So I go Eels 13 plus, just as a straightforward one there. Anytime try scorers, I'm not going to touch just because it's a very unpredictable one. Katoa, he's got 12 tries in his last 12 games now, but coming up against the edges of Para, it's going to be a tough ask for him to get over. So just a straightforward Eels 13 plus for me.
All right, that pays $2.50. I now ask you this, Mr. Matthew, based on what you've tipped this week, what is your best bet? What is your value multi?
Oh God! So I am going to go with my Panthers Raiders tips for best bet and best value as well, just because they're on there pretty. They're both pretty tight, and I see that one landing potentially. So that's where I go with that.
So you're going Panthers 1 to 12 best bet, and then that multi as your value. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep, that's what I'm going to go for there. Just because I think that one has the most realistic chance of anything that I've given out today.
All right. So Panthers 1 to 12, the best bet, adding on the 34.5 for a 650 multi. Look, it's a tough one. My best bet, looking at what I have right now, pretty hard for me not to say the Bunnies game over 38.5 at $1.90 as my best bet. In terms of a value multi, I was 2 of 3 with my try scorers last week. I'm going to go the same sort of route. 3 try scorers. I'm not going to offer odds on this one because not all the games are up. But I do think that Cust will be one. So Cade Cust, anytime try scorer. David Norfoluma as the second. And the third, I know you're not touching it, Matt, but it's hard for me to ignore Katoa at the value that he will be. Cust, Nofo, Katoa, anytime try scorer. That's my multi, and that wraps it up.
Right, okay then. So up on screen now, you will see all our tips just to refresh your memory. And all we could do once more is thank you for joining us here on the channel. If you are enjoying the content, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, making sure you never miss one of our uploads. And we'll see you ahead of the next round to see how we went and to tip the next one. Happy punting, gamble responsibly, and enjoy the games.